ศไทย
ធំមកបងប្អូនឲ្យមើលទៅដូចល្វឹងល្វើយហើយជឿអត់បើខ្ញុំនិយាយចឹងតាមជនបទគេទិញស្ពូបងយក
Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney says a dispute with President Trump over a new bridge that connects Michigan and Ontario will, in his words, be settled. The two leaders discussed the Gordie Howe International Bridge in a call this morning, named after the Canadian hockey legend. That's after Mr. Trump threatened to block the project, writing on social media last night, quote, "I will not allow this bridge to open until the United States is fully compensated." At a briefing today, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt echoed the president's claims that the U.S. has not benefited enough from the project.
The U.S. should own at least half of the bridge, have shared authority over what passes across it, and participate in the economic benefits generated by its use. This is just another example of President Trump putting America's interests first.
In fact, Canada paid for the construction of the $4.7 billion bridge, which is jointly owned by the Canadian government and the state of Michigan. Detroit's Regional Chamber of Commerce said any effort to block the bridge would have, in its words, tremendous consequences for the region, state, and country.
Support journalism you trust. Support PBS News. Donate now, or even better, start a monthly contribution today.
And what do you make of the testimony so far?
Yeah, one of her main strategies, Kira, over the course of this testimony has been to, when she's pressed on Jeffrey Epstein, for example, which is something that Democrats and even a Republican on this panel continue to bring up, she pivots to Attorney
Promotion ពិសេសសម្រាប់គាត់ឥឡូវហ្នឹងបើសិនខ្ញុំលែងគាត់ក៏គាត់ទាខ្ញុំសងថ្លៃបរាការគាត់ដែរបើគាត់ចង់បានក៏ត្រូវសងកំមុំខ្ញុំវិញគាត់ត្រូវសងកំមុំខ្ញុំវិញ
What
ព្រោះឥឡូវខ្ញុំអស់កំមុំហើយមានអីទៀតទេហើយយកខ្ញុំមានកូន2 3ហើយមានតែសងថ្លៃបរាការគាត់ព្រោះឲ្យខ្ញុំអស់កំមុំហើយបើគាត់ត្រូវការគាត់ត្រូវសងលុយខ្ញុំដូចគ្នាដែរមកព្រោះឲ្យអស់កំមុំហ្នឹង Okay យើងលេងឆាតអីចឹងគាត់ចាប់បានយើងលេងឆាត
The Attorney General
If that Pam Bondi
នេះគឺជាសកម្មភាពរបស់បងប្រុសម្នាក់ដែលគាត់មានអាយុទៅតែក្រោម21ប៉ុន្តែឆ្លងម៉ោង12នេះគឺគាត់ចូល21ឆ្នាំហើយអញ្ចឹងណា
There are more mentions of Donald Trump in the Epstein files. Let's talk about it. So interestingly, a lot of these files.
In her first appearance before House lawmakers, Attorney General Pam Bondi, not surprisingly, faced.
We have significant developments this happened.
បងប្រុសម្នាក់រត់កង់3ចិត្តក្តៅជំរុញឲ្យចិត្តឆាវបានផ្ទះទៅលើបានរីភ្ញៀវចំនួន2កំភ្លៀងបងប្អូនហេតុអីមិនត្រូវជេរម៉ែខ្ញុំពួកឯងជេរម៉ែខ្ញុំវាយខ្ញុំយ៉ាងត្រេះអញផ្ទះមួយដៃលើពួកឯងវាយស្អែកកំដៅយើងញ៉ាក់ចោមរាយហើយបង្កើតឲ្យអញអូអាចោមរាយចឹងហ្មងបាទវាយអញគាត់មិននេះមើលងាយអញចោមរាយរត់ទៅ2កំភ្លៀងហើយចូលទៅលើកង់3ផ្ទះផាចទៅចំទៅណា2ដៃហ្មង2កំភ្លៀងដែរ2កំភ្លៀងឲ្យឆ្វេងហ្នឹងហើយគាត់ឡើងដៃមនុស្សផងបងគាត់ឡើង pass ad ជីហូតមកស្នាមហ្នឹងហ្មងហេតុអីស្នាមអីគេស្នាមក្រហមហ្នឹងស្នាមរៀមដៃហ្មងបងហេតុអីបធូមើលហេតុអីមិនផ្ទះបើឲ្យ2កំភ្លៀងពួកយើងវាយស្រែកខុសហើយប៉ុន្តែវាធ្វើខ្ញុំទៅដាក់ធំនេះបានធំនេះបានស្រែកតែយើងតែខ្ញុំញោដៃខ្ញុំជើងពីរដងពួកយើងចិត្តក្តៅខ្ញុំរត់ទៅឆៅពីនាយករដ្ឋមន្ត្រីរបស់អ្នកនរគ្នាមកយក
Kidnapping children is not what great.
How many of Epstein's co-conspirators have you indicted?
First, you showed it. I find it.
How many have you indicted?
Excuse me. I'm going to answer the question. It's very interesting.
My time.
I think it's very interesting.
You can
when he talks about they indicted, the president said they indicted him twice.
Mr. Chairman, please stop the clock. I'd like to talk about why Howard Lutnick must resign. Howard Lutnick knew Jeffrey Epstein was evil. Howard Lutnick said in his own words, he called Jeffrey Epstein the greatest blackmailer ever. When he and his wife visited Epstein's house, Epstein showed him a space to, quote, get a massage. And I assume that was on video. This guy was the greatest blackmailer ever, blackmailed people. That's how he had money. Well, guess what? The Epstein files new release shows that not only did Howard Lutnick lie to American people, he went into business with Jeffrey Epstein. He visited Epstein Island. And Howard Lutnick did this knowing how evil Epstein was. Lutnick also lied to American people.
Trading was
If you ever think that you're the problem, this video depicts hundreds of private jets leaving immediately after the Super Bowl. If you look closely, you can see an especially shameful flight that goes directly from San Jose to Santa Rosa. That is a 99-mile flight. And a private jet uses anywhere from 100 to 500 gallons of jet fuel per hour. A Toyota Camry has a fuel tank of about 13 gallons, and that tank will last you about 2 weeks with regular driving. So a private jet on the low end is using about 5 months worth of Camry fuel in an hour. If you ever think that you're the problem, this video depicts hundreds of private jets leaving a...
The Epstein files were released, and somehow the national conversation became about the size of his penis. Does this size of his penis?
Something really big just happened in Washington, and it's signaling a crack within the Republican Party. A top Senate Republican leader has publicly called for the full disclosure of the Epstein files. Not partial, not selective, not redacted. Now, why is this significant? Because the Epstein case has hovered over both parties for years, including individuals who have faced questions about past associations with Epstein. Among them, President Donald Trump. Now, to be clear, association is not conviction, and no court has found Trump guilty of any crimes related to Epstein yet. But politically, this is huge. When a Republican leader demands total transparency, it does two things. First, it puts pressure on the Justice Department to release more information. Second, it sends a message to anyone in power who might prefer the files stay buried. Some are calling it a shot across the bow, a warning that protecting powerful people is no longer acceptable. Whether this is about principle, political positioning, or internal party dynamics, one thing is clear. Calls for transparency are no longer coming from just one side of the aisle. And when both parties start demanding sunlight, that's when things start to get interesting. Share your thoughts in the comments section and follow me for more. Something really big.
Педофил пытался изнасиловать 13...
See, this is why you don't have a culture.
Believe it or not, you can be the most qualified person in a round of interviews and still not get chosen. That doesn't mean that you're less capable.
To the southeast of the beach.
Also, now that's like Donald Trump attended various parties with Jeffrey Epstein. I want to know, were there any underage girls at that party? Or
I can't believe we're getting bantered by West.
Do you want to know why China banned religion? First of all, it's not banned. But there's narrative, and people assume religion is banned in China because people don't understand why some religion are frowned upon. To put it simply, all religion doesn't matter, Muslim, Christian.
Pam Bundy's testimony about the Epstein files just turned into one of the most chaotic congressional hearings you'll ever see. She called a congresswoman who lost her family in the Holocaust anti-Semitic. At times, she threw childish fits, calling someone a loser.
not on our time, no way. And I told you about that, Attorney General, before you started.
You don't tell me.
Yeah, oh, I did tell you because we saw what you did in the Senate.
You're a lawyer, not even a lawyer.
When asked why alleged Epstein clients weren't being indicted, she then went on a rant about how good the stock market is.
We should be talking about making Americans safe. We should be talking about, what does a Dow have to do with anything? That's what they just asked. Are you kidding?
When asked why her DOJ didn't release the files as required by law, her answer was literally, what about Merrick Garland? With then Thomas Massie pointing out that she's the one in charge now, and her response is she called him a hypocrite over an unrelated deepfake porn bill, though. Also, when asked about Ghislaine Maxwell, she deflected to a completely different crime.
You know, instead of talking about Ghislaine Maxwell, who hopefully will die in prison, I have talking about Irina Zarutska.
I have a couple
who
of
died
other
on a
questions.
subway.
And here's the thing. She was there to testify about the Epstein files. And instead, you got deflections, whataboutism, and personal attacks that were really just for Donald Trump to enjoy. And so if you were hoping for answers or accountability from the Trump administration, you really didn't get it. Pam Bundy's testimony about the Epstein files just turned into one of the most chaotic congressional...
Jeffrey Epstein bought 300 gallons of sulfuric acid. That's used to dissolve bones, teeth, and any trace of human remains. Jeffrey Epstein.
Canada is almost done building this bridge, the Gordie Howe Bridge between Detroit and Windsor. In fact, it connects the 401 and Interstate 75, bypassing a lot of the congestion that plagues other bridges between the two cities. The bridge was initially approved by Stephen Harper and Barack Obama, but in 2017, Justin Trudeau and Donald Trump had a joint statement where they both outlined how important the bridge was. In fact, its expeditious completion was one of the priorities for Donald Trump's administration at the time. Fast forward to now, where Donald Trump has threatened to prevent the bridge from opening unless Canada gives consent.
Elon Musk is responding to Justin Trudeau's tweet that he put online yesterday. In it, he says there isn't a snowball's chance in hell that Canada would become a part of the United States, referring to what Donald Trump said earlier in the day. He continues by saying, workers and communities in both of our countries benefit.
Basic questions, really quick. I'm not going to ask any questions. I find it.
How many have you?
What most people don't appear to understand is
Today, Congress heard testimony from Pam Bondi, Attorney General and woman who stresses everyone out at book club, but it's not worth uninviting her because that'll become a whole thing. Congress had a lot of serious questions for her about everything from ICE to Epstein, and I'm sure she handled them with the grace and maturity we have come to expect from the Trump administration.
Are you kidding? I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer the question. I'm not going to get in the gutter for her theatrics. Can I finish, please? I'm not being rude. Please. I only have. She doesn't say how much money she took from Reid Hoffman, did you? You don't tell me.
No, I did tell you because we saw what you did in the Senate.
Find factory level prices and
Attorney General Bond.
Did you know that many countries around the world
There is currently about 10,000 Canadians in pets.
So remember on Monday when Donald Trump randomly started threatening to block the opening of the Gordie Howe Bridge, that massive bridge that connects Michigan to Canada? Yeah, well, it turns out that wasn't random at all. It's actually a textbook example of corruption and crony capitalism. Because here's what really happened. According to a brand new report from the New York Times, just hours before Trump went on his rant on Truth Social, his Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, you know, the guy who admitted today to going to Epstein Island, had a private meeting in Washington.
Donald Trump attended various parties with Jeffrey Epstein.
So, okay, approval rating down.
They can't vote.
In an interview,
the United States government is engaged in an act.
Congressman, what's your reaction?
We have some big news right now about the El Paso airspace closure. You want to know what caused the airspace closure? Shooting down a party balloon. That, according to latest reporting from Jennifer Jacob. The Trump administration has been claiming that it was Mexican cartels sending drones across the border. That's not true. It actually stems from a...
So Pam Bondi is testifying in front of...
I love this.
I want to discuss another man, Donald Trump, who is all over the Epstein files, like former President.
a gentlelady from Texas recognized.
Thank you so much, Mr.
President Trump considers sending a second air.
I believe Wexner's name 1,000 times about I had.
Yeah, I already told you that.
Can I finish my answer? Come on, let me finish my answer. We corrected that within. It was already. You're acting like everybody's trying to cover up Wexner's name. Within 40 minutes, Wexner's name was added back.
Within 40 minutes of me catching you red-handed.
One redaction.
The question, a little more pointed, I have to say, is why, though, were the victims' names released that shouldn't have been? That there were names in the files, that these Jane Does, that their names shouldn't have been made public, when there were some accusers whose names were redacted? That's question one. Mm-hmm. And question two was that Ghislaine Maxwell was put in jail for trafficking minors. Rightly so, and you properly said here at this table, you hope she dies in jail. Well,
Trick questions here. The American people have a right to know the answers to this. These are senior.
Pam Bondi turned her congressional hearing into a circus, and it backfired on Donald Trump as it exposed him in a major way. Now, if you missed it today, Pam Bondi was in front of Congress for a hearing on the files and how the DOJ has handled them. And Bondi tried to turn the whole thing into a circus as a way to distract from the files and get people talking about anything but that. But it ended up backfiring because a hearing that would have garnered very little attention.
We've got some bad economic news. Donald Trump's tariffs cost the average American household $1,000 last year, and it's going to cost you $1,300 this year because the tariffs have gone even higher.
higher. That was an analysis from the Tax Foundation. The Congressional Budget Office, independent body of Congress, estimates that 95% of the cost of tariffs will go to consumers in higher prices. 95% you and I are paying, guys. When Trump says he's putting a 50% tariff on goods from Colombia, Brazil in this case, and he's putting a 50% tax on coffee, 95% of that is going to you and me. They're going to raise our prices by 47.5% for coffee. I mean, at least from Brazil. This is outrageous, guys. He's done this to from Mexico, from China, from Europe, across the board. And now we find out it's cost the average American family $1,000 last year. It's going up to $1,300, another $1,300 this year. This is absolutely outrageous, guys. It is a tax on the American people. Google tariffs and you will see. This is a tax on Americans, what we have to pay for these goods. Donald Trump is the biggest tax and spender in American history. We've got some bad economic news. Donald Trump's tariffs cost the average American household $1,000 last year, and it's going to cost you $13.
So I want to move on to another man.
Can I answer
Donald
that,
Trump.
though?
I want to move on to another
Can I answer
question.
your question?
Didn't discuss another man.
I'm waiting. But we're going to move back to you.
Most of the Democrats today walked out of Pam Bondi's hearing in protest because she quite simply wasn't answering any questions. I mean, look at this. This is just from moments ago. All these empty seats. Everyone left. But not before Ted Lieu caught Pam Bondi committing perjury.
ព្រោះថៃនៅអាស្អីគេបឹងតគួននៅភូមិជោគជ័យទីអស់កុំលីអានេះគាត់ខ្លោចចិត្តខ្ញុំហើយអាកន្លែងផ្សេងគេនៅតែឈូសឆាយហើយរដ្ឋាភិបាលកម្ពុជានៅតែតវ៉ានេះគឺជាលិខិតទីប្រហែលជា 1500 ហើយនេះកម្ពុជាតវ៉ាជំទាស់សកម្មភាពខុសច្បាប់របស់កងកម្លាំងប្រដាប់អាវុធរបស់ថៃក្រសួងការបរទេសចេញសេចក្តីថ្លែងការណ៍ថ្ងៃ11ហ្នឹងគឺតវ៉ាទៀតហើយបងប្អូនគឺតវ៉ាយ៉ាងខ្លាំងប្រឆាំងនឹងសកម្មភាពខុសច្បាប់ជាបន្តបន្ទាប់របស់កងកម្លាំងប្រដាប់អាវុធថៃនៅតំបន់មួយចំនួនក្នុងខេត្តបន្ទាយមានជ័យដែលបានថៃបានកាន់កាប់តវ៉ានេះគឺធ្វើដោយសារ
Bondi, that man works for you now, right?
Who was that, Congressman?
The man in that video, the one who was in the police-worn body cam footage, the one allegedly yelling, "Kill him," at police officers on January 6th, his name is Jared Wise.
He does work for us.
He works for you at the Department of
he does.
Justice.
He does.
This is an individual whom a federal...
Did y'all see Pam Bondi's testimony earlier today? She is a complete and total disgrace. She should be ashamed of herself. And Senate Republicans, shame on you for confirming such an unqualified, unhinged, and unprofessional individual. Nothing that the Department of Justice, the company, a grand jury.
Have you apologized?
The gun attack in British Columbia is one of Canada's worst ever mass shootings. Here's what we know so far. The attack happened at a school and a nearby home in the small town of Tumbler Ridge and is located about